Look within. Look within. Look within. And live your life. And live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are.
Who am I?
Take the step into the unknown with Alexander McKeag and Jason Rigby as they explore the thinly veiled world of consciousness, spirit, and the human condition. Join them in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Welcome to High Density Living.
We're here.
We're here.
I was lost for a moment.
You were in everywhere. You were in Idaho.
Yep, Idaho, Utah.
Did you see the stars at nighttime?
No, all that smoke from California.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
that's the thing.
Every morning was a deep red sun that you could stare at. You look right at it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, the smoke's been extremely thick. California's angry. Mother Nature's just angry in California.
I was shocked at how many companies are moving out of California.
Yeah, well, why would you want to be there? It's
the taxes are going up.
Expensive. Taxes are high. It takes forever to get to work. There's no water.
Yeah. Do you think the Valley in that whole area? I wonder how many. Because I think Tesla, he's moving.
Yeah.
Elon Musk said he's out.
Did he open up something here?
Yeah, and I think he's going to...
Netflix is over here too on Facebook.
Yeah, and he's going to... Well, somebody was telling me the other day, Albuquerque's so great. That's where we're at, peeps, if you guys want to know. But Albuquerque, New Mexico, but we don't want anybody living here.
No, you all stay where you are.
It's a shithole.
Yeah, it's a terrible place. Don't come here.
But Albuquerque's so great because, especially for like server farms and stuff like that, because there is no... Oh, there's our little guy. He's on the tree. He comes every time.
Every time we start the episode,
we have a hummingbird on a tree.
Yeah, what is with that?
Yeah, you can see him. But they said this is like, it's the safest place because it's consistent and there's no natural disasters here.
It is.
There's no natural disasters here.
No, it's super consistent. If you go back, what was it, 225,000 years, that was the last like volcanic eruption that was actually occurring here. And it's settled now.
Yeah.
Quite significantly.
Because Wyoming, Utah, that whole area, Montana could just be open up like just be gone.
You know, like the big blower?
And there's a super volcano?
Why can't I never remember that thing's name in Yellowstone?
I know.
keep calling it Big Blower.
Yeah, big blower, yeah.
Old Faithful.
Yeah, Old Faithful, yeah.
That thing's going to just rip right through the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all those areas feel unstable. And then in California, not only is it dry and there's wildfires, but you got the not Marianas Trench. What am I talking about? The San Andreas Fault Line. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
That fault line that like will just drop a whole bunch into the ocean. Then who knows when a freaking tsunami is going to hit that place?
Oh yeah, it's like where I'm from, Seattle, and all that stuff. They've done it over and over and over again. You got Mount Rainier, which is a lava flowing volcano. You know, Mount St. Helens went in the 80s, but so you have, and that would wipe out because it's lava flowing. Because that made Nisqually River went all the way to the ocean. Yeah, from Mount Rainier, so that's going to wipe out just about everything. And then the tsunamis. You know, they predicted that they're going to, and you know, Seattle's actually a little bit below sea level. A lot of people don't realize
that's not good.
No, tsunami,
sea
level.
Same thing with Boston. You know, Boston is built pretty much on landfill. They filled in most of the harbor with trash and then built on top of it. Smart. Yeah. All those big expensive buildings in the Seaport District.
That's what happens to people there.
Smart.
I was wondering why you guys are so angry.
Yeah.
Want to fight all the time.
The mob's been burying bodies.
What's the great theater there? Wilbur? The Wilbur Theater? I think it's called the Wilbur.
Over by the...
you know what I'm talking about.
Over in the
It's
Common.
like super old and very beautiful.
Yeah, it's over in the Common.
Yeah. There's some really
sort of
cool
where the
shit
Masonic Lodge and all that other stuff.
Have you ever gone in a Masonic Lodge?
Yeah.
They're so cool inside. I like
cool.
that.
I wish it wasn't so chauvinistic, though.
Why? I was thinking about this today before we get started because this will go.
Is this going to trigger me?
Yeah. No, it's not. You're gonna. When is the last time you've seen in the past 50 years where we've seen something being built for the sake of art and craftsmanship? There's art, but I'm talking, you remember all Boston was built on, you can go to those old churches. We always look at like Notre Dame, you know, when that thing was burning and we were like, oh my God. But we always look at things as being amazing as old. But where are the craftsmen? Where is this happening now? You know, I'm glad. Are these big buildings being built that are beautiful?
But they're not. It's just, you know, if you go to United Arab Emirates or Dubai. They're just tall skyscrapers, but there's no real art that's going into it. There's no craftsmanship. It's funny that you say that. Amanda and I were in a museum in Philadelphia Museum of Art a couple years ago. And after we left, we sat down for dinner at this place called the Dandelion. It's on like 20th and like Locust or something like that. And we were looking at each other and like, with our generation, what would we put in a museum?
Old Mac computer.
A battery.
Yeah.
An oil drum.
Tesla.
Lame.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, we lack
an iPhone.
Yeah, but that lacks craftsmanship, frankly.
Yeah, I don't, it's like that artisan, that
something's missing.
Because we talked about that in our last episode, it's like grandpa worked on this building, father worked on this building, son, and then his son. Yeah. You could have 4 or 5 generations that have, are like Masonic Lodge or like real Masons, like,
sure.
Where they just pass it on. And then you have journeymen and that's the part of the United States that bugs me. And I always talk about that. That's why I think community colleges and trades like electricians and plumbers, that should all be provided for free.
It really should, because
I get paying for college, going to Yale. I get all that, but
the other stuff, like actual hard craftsmanship.
Yeah,
it'd be a shame to have that lost. Because,
like Finnish carpenters, like where you're from. I mean, you could see like, where's the crown molding anymore?
There's nothing. These are just square walls.
And then how many people know how to do that really well? With the remember the little squares
but then,
and all that.
What's interesting is that when someone does come along, they're like, holy crap, look at this guy.
I know
Like if you go to the Rolls,
he's an artist
at the Rolls-Royce factory. There is one guy. He's paid a boatload of cash, but all he does is hand pinstripe. That's his job.
Hand pinstriping.
Pinstripes the entire Rolls-Royce.
See, that's awesome.
And that's his thing.
But I like that because, and we're going to get into here. I'm going to segue. You ready? I like that because it is somebody living their creation.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, because that's art. Whenever you're doing something, he's passionate about that. And I guarantee if you walked up to him, he'd be super proud in a good way.
He should.
And he would tell you, whenever you do something for mankind like that, we can use pinstriping, or you're in the museum and you see this beautiful painting and it moves you, touches you, whatever.
I hope it doesn't touch me.
Yeah. Interactive art.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't think this was a please touch museum.
Yeah. We always think like it would violate, like it's going to touch your, it's going to touch your genitals or your ass or something. But what if it just went and stuck its finger in your nose,
Oh, that'd be
we
so
never think
funny.
of that.
That would be so funny.
Or like aliens come, with their long fingers or whatever. And they just, their thing is to like stick their long finger.
What if their only interest was like shoving it up your nose?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
You're like, wow, I was not expecting a probe there.
But it's so funny how we psychologically, when we fear something, we want to go to genitals.
Yeah, like is this like a fear area?
It is. Well, it's what
that's going to
be
the
yellow
a
chakra
deep episode.
Yeah, we don't want to get into the yellow chakra and how to. What do you think? Most women's hips are so tight, and there's so many issues, and that's the childbearing area.
Maybe we should ask.
We can
Paul
go on
Check.
and on. Yeah,
we can ask Paul Check.
Yeah, we need to get him on the episode. He'll come on.
I don't know why he wouldn't want to come on.
He would come on the episode.
Yeah, he'd have a blast.
Well, I would like to have an episode with him and get into. I'll have to clip this and send it to him, but I'd like to have an episode and get into the spiritual aspects of food.
Yeah.
Like, because he was talking the other day about taking the time to meditate on what you're eating and be appreciative and have gratitude for it.
Right.
And how often in America do we really do that? I rarely do that.
I don't. The second it gets in front of me, I inhale
because
it.
we're being selfish and we're getting to. I mean, I do that every time, But
I guess you're right. Maybe I am being selfish. I'm not really appreciating it even deeper for what it is.
Well, he was talking. He had a guy on the other day that was just with teas, and making tea, and he's like, "There's a huge art form to making tea," and there was people like, especially in Asian cultures and stuff like that, they would have just one person that would make the empress tea, and sit there and just go really to get it absolutely perfect. Another creation art form, taking your time, the pinstriping. But there was it's enjoying, and Buddhism talks about that, enjoying the process, not just hurrying through the process to get to the outcome.
Yeah, it's actually
I'm talking creation,
enjoying the effect of what you're doing,
and I'm talking creation and getting to the outcome, the effect,
the cause. So let's live in the cause, right? Intimately in that moment. And so what we're going to start off with in these episodes is that we're going to talk about creational laws, right? And how those apply to nature and everything else that kind of regulates us because we are part and parcel of creation, right?
And also, look at that. Yeah. Look at that name. Isn't that a badass name?
Flyjack.
Flyjack.
Yeah, I
Who's
really
this
like
with?
that.
Firestone Flyjack. Hazy IPA. These are one of my favorites.
Hazies are the best. I don't want it.
I just went to the dentist, so I needed to get some IPA in me.
Yeah, that'll loosen you up.
The hops will cure everything in my mouth.
Yeah, I'll hop the pain away.
Yeah. So cause and effect.
Yeah. If we're looking at cause and effect, this is something that we as human beings poorly understand and then also poorly apply to our lives.
Yeah, of course, because we're
terrible at
always,
it.
Hey, Alex, don't you think when we look at the cause, why not dissect the prison cell we live in?
Yeah.
Why not look at, let's dive down to the exact when the window and the bars are this far away and light shines down at 5:45. And if I move the chair from here to here, I can get this much draft of. How often do we do all that?
We don't.
It's like, why not ask the question, why are you in a prison cell?
Yeah, why are you even there in the first place, right? But we get so stuck on the effects. And when we sit in these effects, we easily begin to pass blame.
Yes.
When we're constantly thinking about effects, we don't realize the responsibility we had in the place we're currently in.
That our free will has generated the effect.
We
because I can tell you a lot of those about me. You know how many times I've fucked up?
So listen, I
fucked up I'm just way older than you.
Yeah,
so
but I couldn't even count on my
exactly. But it's my 100% my responsibility because the effect that I'm experiencing from it is my responsibility. So me drinking this beer right now, and if I'm gluten intolerant or whatever, I'm going to suffer for it.
Of course, you're going to feel bloated. You probably constipate yourself, tired, whatever it might be.
Then I'll end up being bored on the toilet because I'm constipated and texting
you're going to go on the
memes.
phone, right? You're going to send me a meme. And here's what's happening. Because I drank the beer,
right?
Now I'm blocked up. I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm uncomfortable.
Yes.
But I'm going to send a meme to try and wash away the responsibility. You know what I mean? Now, first we got to define cause and effect. So cause and effect is logic. Logic is a direct linear line that can be traced, right?
I want to interrupt you because
go ahead.
But because you wrote it out. And so I want you to see that on the law and maybe you can share that what you wrote out. Number 2. Yeah. We are starting a whole law series.
Yes,
starting today.
Yeah.
And this is the first law.
It's the SVU
but
of HDL.
We're going to put this online and we'll put links in the show notes to where they can get this.
Everybody's their own special victims unit. It's for you to figure out your own problems.
Yes. You don't need a detective. You are.
Listen, you made your problem.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, people say you made your bed.
Yeah.
Well, can you explain?
Now fucking lie in it,
yeah,
bitch.
now lie in it. Like this. That's exactly right. You are responsible. So the law of cause and effect, or what you can call it, is a law of causality. So what we're talking about here, and I'll give a little definition. It says, in truth, things, situations, and events, as well as occurrences, simply, keyword, simply fit themselves together and join into one another in such a way that a particular effect emerges from this, freely according to the law of causality. That is the law of cause and effect. This is not a complicated thing.
No.
It is inherently so simple, but because we blind ourselves from the cause and we pass off responsibility, it seems that everything is just a miracle or an improbability or just pure sheer dumb luck. No, it's not. If you really reflect on the simple action that is happening, that you are freely generating, you're moving this piece or yourself in a specific direction. And that is going to have distinct linear probabilities that come from that or branch off of it. Even if it branches in two directions, you're going to know that doing a specific thing will have two different outcomes, right? So I have two outcomes here. If I'm driving a car at a high rate of speed, there are two causes that can happen here. I can slow down at some determined time in the future because I either ran out of gas,
right,
or I can hit a wall and I can die.
Or third option, you could be fucking fast and furious, or hit that wall, jump off, jump over the fucking 18-wheeler, fucking land on the ground and flip everyone off, and fucking keep going.
The thing, and that's, but that's the thing. In simplicity of it.
Sorry, I'm drinking too much Fly Jet.
That's all right. That's all right. No, it's good though. We make these choices ourselves as a self-sovereign being. Okay. If we can begin to think before we act, and when I say think before we act, is if we use the power of our consciousness to consider a cause, an action we are going to do, and then think about what are the outcomes, the direct outcomes. You don't have to look very far into the future, right? Even if you were good at doing that, you could see what the effect is going to be, but you can see what those short-term outcomes are going to be from this action.
Right.
Here's another example. Let's think of a basic cause and effect. If I'm going to, like we did with the affirmations episode, if I'm going to continually affirm something to myself, that is going to have an effect that guides me in a direction,
right,
of bringing that affirmation to fruition. Simple. Here's another simple one. If my body's giving me the effect of hunger, right? Well, then I cook food and I ingest it, right? So the cause is me cooking, and the effect is that, I'm now satiated.
But the effect could be, okay, let's say you're hungry, eat shitty food. The effect 40 years later.
So again, and that's a very nice example. So in the short term, where it's like, I'll go to McDonald's, I've satiated that hunger.
Right.
Hold on a second though. There is a simple and logical linear outcome for every choice that is made. So if I'm going to eat that burger, yes, in the short term, it has the effect that I wanted, but that effect then turns into another long-term effect, right?
Yes.
Because it's now a new cause.
Mm-hmm.
It always takes the place again. So cause becomes effect, and that effect then becomes a cause. And then in logical linear progression, it keeps going. And then, like you said, 20, 30 years later, why is my heart plaqued up? Right?
Or you can look at...
Why am I bogged down and sick?
You can look at the situation that we have now with racism and what's been going on. You can see cause and effect huge.
Oh, that's
cause.
That's interesting.
And then the effect, when we look at, situations that are happening where we're seeing police officers shoot, innocent people, or we're seeing, people getting angry towards innocent police officers, then this creates this momentum. And I want us to get into that part too. It creates this momentum, and then you get widespread vibration.
Yep.
On that level, and then you get multiple people thinking, a group of people, a nation begin thinking something. Now, what have you just created? What are the cause and effects?
Creating this massive negative hyper unity.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes! And then from that, the strength of every cause and effect that is happening, because there's so much group action behind a single focus, it can become very dangerous, and it will have proportionally larger negative outcomes.
Right.
Because, we'll continue to roll with emotions stronger and stronger and stronger, and this will create discord, disunity, separation, right? So it's like you've brought yourself together only to create more discord. And so if we really stopped for a moment, thought before we acted, there are a lot of things that are very, there are a lot of injustices.
I guarantee you that police officer didn't think sticking his knee on would create this much of an effect.
Yeah, or holding a dude's shirt and shooting him seven times point blank in the back.
Yeah, you don't know the effect, what the effect could be from that cause.
And this is, again, this goes back to what we were originally saying, is that we as human beings do a very poor job of that analysis of our actions.
Right.
And because, Jason, we're not recognizing this well-trodden law of cause and effect that we are all bound by, we're fighting a hurricane of our own cause.
Yes.
And in doing so, we are killing ourselves faster. We are creating discord in our personal lives, in our spirit, in our consciousness, and in all surrounding people in all of our social circles. That's what's happening.
Well, I mean, it's more than that. I mean, when we, and I kind of want to get into this because I want us to, when we look at cause and effect, when we look at exactly what's happening in society today, we can take this and remove it. We were talking off the air, what was happening in the 1920s and how we can relate what was happening in America in the 1920s to now. A lot of correlation. We could go back to the French Revolution and correlate a lot of cause and effect.
French Revolution, that's interesting. I can't get into it. You're right. We can go back to a lot of that cause and effect. And if we're looking at what is occurring right now, we're moving ourselves into another civil war.
Yes.
We are creating a discord amongst ourselves against a government, right? Our own government, because, we're acting on both sides without reason. And that is going, we're going to feel that. And all of us will be a part of it. And we can't pass off that responsibility. We are all responsible for it. We were responsible for this.
To politicians.
Well, yeah. Listen,
and then expect them to, when they're playing that game.
And people are like, oh, this is blowing up. Listen, we allowed them to be there for so long.
Right.
We allowed these policies to be in place for so long. We did not take the responsibility to stand up, take action without violence, right? But reasonable action, and recognize that these causes we've put in place, the responsibility of the chains we've put on ourselves, are going to have very negative effects in the future. And we're not recognizing, we truly have not recognized, the issues with slavery.
Yes.
And disunity. If we did, we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't have these animosities, right? We wouldn't have
inner cities.
We wouldn't have inner cities. We wouldn't have problems of fear. We would have, a much more appreciative equality of what it means to be a human being.
A human being.
It'd be a more egalitarian approach. And I say egalitarian, it's an equalized approach, right? A fair, free will approach. And that respect only comes from us truly recognizing what our actions do in the short term, and as we become better about it, evolve it into the long term to see what the long-term effects are going to be. So when we look at this law, everything is bound by it. A seed germinating in the ground, a hummingbird sitting in the window, us sitting here speaking right now, and our listeners listening to us. These are all direct causes and effects. And they made a choice to listen to it. And then that will have an effect on their consciousness. And then from there, they will create more causes, hopefully for the better.
For the better, right? Exactly.
This is not something, Jason, that is only applicable to some people. This is applicable to all. To the sun, to how our universe rotates, everything. All of these natural things that are occurring, they're bound by those cause and effects.
Yeah, and I want to get into a little bit, and because I know you enjoy this, and I do too, the science aspect of it, because everybody always talks about the universal law of cause and effect, and then they get into showing a pyramid or showing, the chakras off the spine, and and so everybody kind of looks at it as being this new age mystical foo-foo stuff. When this is a law, like a law could ever be.
This is time immemorial. This is an immovable thing. It's completely when it's a law, it's unchangeable.
Yes.
So if we look from a scientific approach at what defines a law. What defines a law is that there is so much evidence that shows that this reasonable outcome will occur. We then define something as a law. And there is an absolutely insurmountable amount of evidence from physical observation about the law of cause and effect, just from if you were observing astronomically planetary bodies, or how things work on the atomic level, or chemistry, right? We're talking about cause and effects.
Physics in and of itself is cause and effect.
That's what
whole
all of physics is cause and effect, right?
Yes.
It's mass and force and acceleration. And then from that, it takes on a specific vector. And when I say vector, it's direction. So if you think, of your life and your decisions as a physics equation, then you're like, okay, so what's going to be the force? So the force is my effect of my causes. And my causes are going to be how much mass do I have and how much acceleration or effort am I going to put into moving that, whether it be a thought or my own body. Okay. And that's going to increase my F, which is my force. It's going to go through the roof. But I'm also going to know if I apply a vector to it, right? And they denote that with an arrow in a certain direction, where that's headed. And if I'm going to collide with another object, I can also calculate the angle.
Right.
So now I can be like, okay, now this is going to branch off. It has the probability of going 2 different ways. Interesting. But that is a direct equation that is happening in physics, right? That's your M1, M2, which gives you, whatever's going on. I don't remember them all. But from a scientific standpoint, do you have a pertinent example here?
Well, I think, and I really want to get into this. There's a book called The Book of Why, The New Science of Cause and Effect.
Why?
The Book of Why.
Like the letter Y?
No, W-H-Y.
Oh, because Y is kind of cool.
Yeah. But it's called The New Science of Cause and Effect. It's written by some scientists. And he starts off the premise, chapter 1 of this, the actual process by which Homo sapiens gain dominion.
Oh, this is
over
cool.
our planet.
Yeah, please. I like
because this goes straight to the beginning and straight to science.
Yeah.
This is why. So he says, what then was the sequence of steps in this speedy super evolutionary process? Because all of a sudden we're, what was it? Was it like 50,000 years, like 50,000 years ago or
a little longer than that?
Yeah. Something happened and they call it the cognitive revolution or the great leap forward.
Like we just, out of freaking nowhere, it just became these just like conscious, we can do math. You know what I mean? Like we can do a mark on a wall with soot and be like, okay, that counts as 1.
Yeah, and he goes into the story of Adam and Eve in the very beginning. And
this is a scientist writing.
Yeah, and this is a scientist.
Well, this is interesting allegory.
Well, he's a Jew. And so studying the book of Genesis, they had to do that every year. They would study the book of Genesis. And he said most of his professors and everybody that were Jewish were, pretty much evolutionists, they were agnostic, whatever they may be. But the whole story, he's like, we listened to this 100,000 times, but I never saw a cause and effect. I never saw true science in the story.
It's called Genesis. It's the original cause.
Yeah,
it's in the damn name.
Oh, that's really good,
like,
bro. I love that.
Come on.
So, after they eat the Adam, after
they eat the Adam,
they eat the Adam.
Eat him. They were cannibals back then.
Our Adam ATO.
I knew we were screwed up.
Ate the Adam.
The Oregon Trail makes sense. Oh, we ate the Atom.
Yes. Which split and then
that's when we have the national labs.
Yes, exactly. So, we have what's the other one in Europe? Oh, CERN.
CERN.
Yeah.
CERN with
CERN. Yeah. So when so after all that, they're feeling guilty. God finds Adam hiding in the garden, and then he asks. It's interesting because God asked this question, which I thought was, "Have you eaten from the tree which I forbade you?" Right, and then Adam answers. This is basic story.
Dude, if he was a god, why would he have to ask the question? It seems redundant.
This explains it because
I know.
I'm sorry. But
yeah.
He's sometimes we ask the question. We already know the answer, but we ask the question to see what the response is, the truthful response. Yeah. Adam answers, "The woman you gave me for a companion, she gave me fruit in the tree."
Of course, blame the woman.
So he blamed. That's what he did. He blamed the woman.
Is this when chauvinism started?
Yes, this was. Yeah, and then God says, "What is this that you have done?" So then he asks Eve. She replies, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The snake was on the tree. It's Satan. So as we know, and you mentioned this earlier, which I think is interesting, and I want you to talk about this from the very beginning of time, even with the allegory of Genesis, we have the blame game starting from Homo sapiens.
Wouldn't you know?
Because you mentioned that earlier, the blame game.
Yeah, that's what we do.
We're blaming the effect.
Of course, we blame the effect, but we got to look at the cause. Who's responsible? We're genetically responsible for a lot of things.
But right? God, what's interesting with God is God asked what, and they answered why. God asked for the facts, and they reply with explanations. So both were thoroughly convinced, Adam and Eve, very beginning of mankind, supposedly, We're convinced that naming causes would somehow paint their actions in a different light.
It doesn't, because...
But look where we're at now.
No, I know. This is what we do. All right, this is interesting. We do that same thing. And this is interesting because with religions, faith, you pass your responsibility off.
Yes, yes.
So even from a religious aspect, we pass a responsibility off to the God, other people, saying we're not to blame.
We blame it on sin or the devil.
We're born of sin. I blame it on the devil.
Possessed.
I was possessed. I couldn't control myself. No. Bullshit. You can control everything that's going on. Do not pass that blame off. But that is what we've done. So we've taken that same aspect and we've applied it to everything else. Our focus has only been on the effect and then passing off the responsibility of the effect and completely ignoring that you are the sole cause of what is going on. You're the person that stood under the tree in the story, ate the damn apple, and now you got to have a conversation with the big boss, whoever he is, and say, well, what are you doing eating that apple?
But this is something that I think is profound. And that we see when we see Homo sapiens in this big cognitive growth that we experienced. Number one, in evolution, we began to realize that the world is just not made up of just dry facts. What we call facts, or what we would call data today.
Yeah.
And then that they're glued together. All these facts and data are glued together with intricacies of cause and effect.
Okay, if go back to the definition where that I had thing.
Yeah.
So
where's it at?
I don't know. I think I handed it to you. Okay, you said they're glued together.
Yes.
They simply fit themselves together and join into one another in such a way that a particular effect emerges from this. Listen, it's not far off at all. This is not difficult scientific understanding here. If we go back in the history of our evolution, if you're evolving, then there's a clear line of where you have come from.
But why all of a sudden? This is why I think the law of cause and effects explains this, because there's this big thing like here we were just trying to survive, very primitive. And then next thing you know, we're creating fucking typewriters and you know what I mean? It's like, how do we go from...
I get, something. I don't have an answer.
But I think we can get an answer, and these scientists talk about it when we look at exactly, God, that guy just stays there our whole podcast. He's our only audience. We got one downloader. That's the hummingbird.
That's the hummingbird. I thought it was a real human being.
Yeah, so...
but if you're right, so if we go back...
We got one guy named Jim. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate you listening to us.
Jim, I thank you for all your support. Us. Jim's a major donor. Appreciate it. But if we go back, right, historically, then we should know what the origin is.
Yeah.
We should be able to find the genesis. If we could analyze efficiently cause and effect, we would know exactly what's going on. We would be able to see why that leap actually occurred. But the issue a lot of scientists find, right, or even, anthropologists.
Yeah.
Anthropologists?
There's a store too.
Yeah. I think that's what it's called.
That women go to.
Yeah, is that they say that there's a gap. Yeah, anthropology. Right.
There's also a store called The Gap.
The Gap. Crap. There's a piece missing, and that's why they're always looking for that piece. Right. And that's why things constantly get rewritten in textbooks and histories, because they find something else that then goes into what they think is the timeline. And that's why we have this radiocarbon dating, which albeit is not very accurate, but it gives us a general idea. And so we're trying to figure out what that logical line of cause and effect is. And so our history is bound by it, and our future will be bound by it. Early Homo sapiens were bound by it. The sun that moves around, spins in this galaxy that we have, and then we're spinning around it. Everything has its natural cause and effect.
Yeah, and he gets into it, and this is what I love. So he says, first, these glued together, the intricates, this web of cause and effects, that it's not just pure data, dry facts. Second, he says that casual explanations, not dry facts, make up the bulk of our knowledge.
Yeah, very casual.
Yeah.
They lack explicitness. And that casualness allows for like a fluff area where we can just be like, whatever.
Yeah, but we thrive in that arena.
We thrive in
which
the
is
fluff.
Totally different than machine learning or AI or anything. But he says finally that our transition, I love this. Finally that our transition from processors of data to makers of explanations was not gradual. It required an external push from an uncommon fruit.
Yeah.
And this matched perfectly what, and he talks about the ladder of causation is what he calls it, that no machine can derive explanations from raw data. It needs, when you talk about this, no machine can derive explanations from raw data. It needs a push.
It needs a push. So, and we had talked about this in our Turtle podcast.
Yeah.
Is that when everyone's talking about artificial
sign up, turtle.co.
Yeah, turtle.co, plug. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, is that all it can do right now is observe.
Yes.
It can only observe effects. It does not know what the causes are.
No.
And at that point, it can also not create its own cause.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It's strictly
know.
a system of observation that outputs the observation, and we're like, wow, that seems really intelligent. Oh, that's good. Good job, Jim. Our major donor here on AI. So if we're looking at that, we see that there's a massive cognitive gap in actually calling something artificial intelligence. There's nothing intelligent about just the observation of it.
Yeah, and because
it's only living in a world
Yes.
of effect. It's only viewing 50% of reality.
Well, not even that, because he says what he believes was the big push is when we could begin to have the capacity to imagine non-existent things.
See, that's interesting, because when you imagine, you start to drive probabilities.
Yes.
And this thing doesn't have imagination.
We imagine consequences all the time.
We imagine consequences, right?
We can imagine the art that we're going to.
And then we're going to be like, okay, so if I'm going to imagine a consequence, if I'm going to look at my cause and effects, do these effects align with, this possible imagined consequence? Yeah, I guess it does. If I continue to drive my probabilities in this direction, that imagination will eventually become a reality. It has to, because if I thought about it,
right,
that means it has to exist somewhere.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. When we were doing the group meditation on the Mesa last night, someone had asked about this. And this is really funny that you're bringing it up again, because if it is imagined, it has to exist. Because if you imagine something that sat outside of reality that didn't exist, the universe would fold in on itself, because then it would be an anomaly that sits outside of all the laws. So a conscious thought has to exist somewhere. That imagination has to come from somewhere. That input, there are causes and effects that lead to that imagination.
But you have to also look at it in that imagination, which all these laws are bound by, is creation.
And that's the creativity.
Right.
It's the constant evolving, testing and retesting.
Yes.
And testing and retesting, that's the scientific model. Here's my hypothesis. What is my outcome? Now let's retest it. Do I get the same outcome? No. Okay. New hypothesis. But if I do, and I do it thousands and thousands and millions of times, it becomes a law. And that's how we derive back to the law of cause and effect. It is logically scientific, provable, observable with everything in our existence, internal and external, affecting our spirit and our material body.
The spirit and the material body.
I'm out of breath.
Yeah, just take the big pause. Yeah, that's right. But like one of the ways that he talks about, I said but like one of the ways that he talks about Homo sapiens and understanding this scientifically, and I love this, and he gives an illustration of it, is planning.
Oh, planning is interesting.
Yeah, it's a great word. Like he says, when did we get the concept where we got a hunting tribe together and then all of a sudden we sit down, and go over and say, okay, you're a better hunter. You're good with the spear. Yeah. We need you to go around this corner. And then, I'm going to draw the whatever animal out. And then you're going to, you see what I'm saying?
You're going to be the meat shield.
Yeah, exactly.
Use the child as bait.
Yeah. How planning things in advance is so unique. We always take that for granted. But when you look at cause and effect, we do this as humans constantly.
But most of the time, we plan for effects. Right. We don't plan for causes.
Right.
We're planning, again, for 50% of the picture because we're so delusional in what we think is reality. And that means we don't really have the proper responsibility, understanding, perspective of a natural creational law that is happening all around us. We're ignoring something so simple and obvious.
Yeah, and he gets into, and this is something that you just talked about earlier, is multiple causes. And then where we're going into cause of success. Like we could say, well, how many hunters do we have? What's the size of the mammoth? What's the weather? What's the terrain? What's the direction of attack? Is there any other factors that we have? You know, do we have children coming along with us that are learning how to hunt?
You get more people with creating more causes, driving a probability that will affect a more probable outcome.
Right.
It's the same thing we're talking about with the civil unrest we have right now in the United States. It's the same thing as this hunting group.
Yeah, and I want to get into it. And I showed you the chart before we were airing, but
describe the chart.
I want to get into this. The one of the things that we see that we have 3 distinct levels as humans is that we have, and the first level is the seeing or the observing, like you said.
So this chart has 3 levels to it.
Right,
I want to build the
but
visual.
I want to make it as simple as possible. So we have the seeing. The seeing is the association, the observing. It is what if I see. And then how are these variables related? Mm-hmm. How would seeing X change my belief in Y?
Belief.
Yeah. I know you hate that word, but how seeing X, let's figure this out. So how seeing X would change my viewpoint, my reality,
my
and
perspective,
Y.
My reality
Right.
on Y.
Yeah. And then he says, I have bad eyes. So what does a symptom tell me about a disease? What does a survey tell us about the election results? Mm-hmm. Those are all association, seeing, observation. And then, and then the next one is seeing, and then the next one's doing.
Yeah. So that's strictly effectual.
Right.
So the first level is like, we're just going to deal with effects.
Right.
Okay. Now we've analyzed the effects. We're going to go into a state of doing.
Right.
Now we're going to start to create a cause.
Yeah.
So we've observed.
And he uses a word that I love. This word is so good.
Intervention.
Or intervening.
Yeah, or intervening. Yeah.
Now the cause and effect really comes in to play here.
Instead of being a third-party observer,
yes.
Now I am going to involve myself.
Yes.
I'm going to intervene and guide the causes to an effectual area. So rather than me just being a pure observer, like a video camera in a room or a robot or an algorithm,
or most people,
I'm going to take responsibility.
Yes.
I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put a cause in place because now, after my observing and learning, I'm going to think I can drive a specific outcome or effect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because now that's higher density living. When we begin to intervene, and create
in our own lives, in our own evolution, in our own understanding. Do not ask for anyone else to come to you and tell you how to think or how to come to a consensus within yourself or how you should feel. That is an intervention for you to do. It's not an outside intervention. It's an internal one because all those causes and effects, the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you act are solely responsible and determinant of you.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you talk to people that are extremely self-aware. I was talking to a girl last week, and she was telling me, that she was raped and abused, and she was actually pimped out by a relative.
That's terrible.
And then being homeless and all that stuff. Yeah.
What a family.
I know. Yeah, just crazy. And she goes, I said, well, how do you deal with this? She goes, well, I practiced. This is cause and effect, right? Mm-hmm. And this is so beautiful. She said, I don't hold any animosity. I have no anger for these people that, were using me. And she was 13, 14, 15 when she was getting pimped out.
That's terrible.
And this is what she told me. She goes, I would, at 13, 14-year-old girl, I would look at these older guys, they're basically molesting me or having sex with me and I'm underage and they know that.
Oh yeah.
And they don't give two fucks. She goes, I would look at them and I saw more hurt in their eyes than what I was hurting.
Wow.
So she goes, why wouldn't I forgive that? And I'm like,
dude, that is
how fucking self-aware are you to be able to see that in that moment as a teenager?
That's like that Amish story.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
She's taking on that same role.
Yeah.
It's not making the situation okay in any way, shape, or form. We're not saying that. Well, all we're saying is that it's amazing, that level of self-awareness.
Yes. But cause and effect to that. So now now she's like, well, what I want to do is there's lots of girls, child trafficking is a big thing right now. And, we're realizing how bad it is.
It's terrible.
In the United States. It's getting more and more. It was kind of like this underlying thing with all these rich fucks, that were doing all this craziness. I'm not a crook. And, and how does Bill Old Bill Clinton. How does he talk?
Oh, you knew what?
Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. I'll be back on the island.
Yeah.
Jeffrey. I love this place. No, but I mean,
the Clintons.
I know. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for a
whether you're
to come
Democrat
through
or
the
Republican,
window.
it does not matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did not commit suicide, guys.
Yeah, just so everyone knows.
None of us.
Yeah.
We would never do that.
How
Alex
can we
and I.
both shoot ourselves in the face?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So, no, but when you think about it, and then you think of somebody that young having that much self-awareness, and then she's turning around and saying, all that was done to me, it gives me the ability to be able to help young women that are struggling in that, but maybe they don't see that.
That's amazing.
So that's cause and effect.
Yeah.
In an extremely powerful way to bring light into darkness, if you want to say it that way.
No, that's exactly what it is. That's
Right.
phenomenal. I honestly, I can't really add to that because that's really emotional and heavy.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But that's intervention.
That's
And that's kind of the second rung. We're not just observing.
She intervened in herself.
First. That's what you were saying. It's our responsibility in herself.
She took on that responsibility.
Even at that age. She's like, okay,
I'm not going to apply blame.
Stupid motherfucker violating me. And in this moment of pure, and what's the guy that was in the Nazi prison camps and wrote those amazing books, In Search of Meaning? Everybody's yelling, Frankel or...
no,
I have them here. You know what? It's called In Search of Meaning, right? Or isn't that the title of the book? Yeah, I have it here, but I have just about every World War II book.
Yeah, yes, you do.
But when you look at it, in a sense of where he made that decision inside of himself to say the circumstances that I'm in right now, looking at this prison camp that I'm in. It's not a prison. This is not holding me back because they can't touch what's inside of me. That's
a huge comment. I know people are like, oh, that's so, like movie dramatic, Hollywood dramatic. It's truly not. Nobody can affect internally this,
no matter what's happening,
everlasting, infinite energy of pure love that sits inside of you.
Yes.
That unbound creativity, because you are part and parcel of creation. And the responsibility of holding on to something like that and doing good with it, right? Truly cherishing it for what it is, and then taking that and applying that understanding and perspective into cause and effects that, evolve him regardless of the areas in that, the entrapment that he may be in the material.
But look at the effect. I mean, he wrote that book, and how many people did he?
And look at it affected you.
Yeah, it affected me
and everybody else that read it.
Right.
And that's what's so great about the law of cause and effect. It's so. If you really look forward, this gentleman, because he was in this camp, had years and years later had a massive effect on so many people, and that will again alter their conscious state.
Yes.
It's such an amazing thing that happens if we, at its core, we really appreciate cause and effect from a scientific standpoint, from a rational, logical standpoint, and then also how that applies to our own spiritual development. And how we can honestly live a better life right now, Jason, by recognizing our own responsibility and taking a step towards that responsibility. Don't live in fear of that responsibility or even passing it off to anyone else. Own it for what it is and take the determining, straightforward path to set the future where you want it to go.
Because
no one's going to do it for you.
You don't know if you're in an abusive relationship and you've been married to this guy for fucking 10, 15 years and you've raised children in that environment and you haven't left. What is the effect that you've done to your daughter?
Yeah.
From that cause.
But the thing is, what's the daughter going to, she was born into this, right?
Yes.
And you had the ability to do it. You can't pass responsibility and say, oh, it's an abusive relationship. I can't
I'm a
leave.
victim. Yeah.
You are choosing to be a victim.
Right.
You are choosing to stay there.
Right.
Okay. You're not choosing to take responsibility and action to either, call 911, get the hell out of the situation and change your life.
Right.
Unless the person is physically holding you down to the floor, preventing your freedom of movement, you have every choice to get the hell out of there.
Yes. And you can be that, maybe you've been in this relationship 10, 15 years. You can be that example to your daughter now.
Yes.
And set her down and say, this is why I left your dad. Here is where I'm at. This is what I'm trying to do. And in turn, you've just, the effect on your daughter after that cause that you just created with her is it's truthfulness.
It's truthful. It's positive. It's enlightening. It enlivens and it adds a richness of perspective to someone at such a young age that is developing. And this is not an anomaly that you're talking about. This imaginative scenario, people live this right now.
Yes.
Like we said, anything imagined, right, has to exist somewhere.
Yes.
And this is an existence that we see day in and day out. And it's sad. It's too bad that we put ourselves and we live continually in these cycles, perpetual cycles that we're responsible for. And to say that we're not, or we can't do anything about it, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to all the creational energy that sits inside of you. You live in an abyss of untruth because you're not recognizing that power of your consciousness, the power of your free will, and the power of your action to actuate and effectuate something that will actually positively enliven yourself and change your life for the better.
Yeah, that's so powerful because it's absolutely truthful what you just said, and I love that, Alex. We have to get to the point to where we're honest with that eternal power that's in us.
Yeah, and it's very hard. It's actually impossible to be untruthful if you recognize a law that you're naturally bound by and you start to live by it. Then you're always living in truth. You're truthful to yourself, and then you can be truthful and honest to others. Because if you're not truthful to yourself and you go around and you try and share stories with everyone else, you're lying to them.
But yeah,
if you try and give them,
if you can lie to yourself, how easy is it to lie to someone else?
Yeah, you can't. If you have a needle, if you see someone with a needle in their eye, but you have a huge freaking
Jesus said this
tree branch going through yours.
Yeah.
Listen, don't worry about the needle in their eye. Take the tree branch out of you first. Yeah. Figure this problem out first, and then go help effectuate that one there.
Yeah.
But you can't understand how to remove that needle unless you can remove the huge freaking logjam that's blinding you here.
Or you can...
I knew you'd like that. Did you like that?
I love that, yeah. When you did a Jesus prayer, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. I'm a Jesus freak.
Yeah. No, but a button for that.
Jesus freak.
Yeah.
There's Jesus Superstar or something like that with some big...
Jesus Christ Superstar?
Yeah. Some big play. But whenever you... think about this, Alex, because you just popped. You always do that to me, just circuit breaker LED lights just start going in my head. Maybe I get to the point when I pull the beam out of my eye that I don't need to look at. Maybe my vision changes and I don't see the speck in the other person's eye.
No,
because I'm coming at them from love instead of judgment.
That's phenomenal.
That's where my head was like,
yeah, no, because
the beam is out,
and that's why we're so focused on everything on the outside. If you can focus on you first, then you begin to see what's truly important, and you understand how to act.
Well, you can love. This is something I'm learning in my life right now. I can love people for who they are and where they're at. I don't have to associate with them all the time and give in to them. But I can understand their level of consciousness where they're at and still have 100% love for them. They may be, if you want to use words, toxic or whatever. And if you have somebody in your life, I'm not telling you to condone their actions. I'm not telling you to accept and have them impose on your free will. I'm going to remove myself.
Respect their level of understanding.
Yes.
That's consciously where their development is.
Right.
Good for you for recognizing it.
Right.
Right. Good for creating a cause within yourself to recognize that. And then you can effectuate a proper love.
Yes.
A proper understanding.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. But I mean,
IPA's making you sleepy.
We talked about it earlier. No. Yeah. What is it? 5:30 or something? But no, really, when you think about it though, Alex, when we look at loving somebody unconditionally, that's what that means. Yeah. It's like, okay, they have a ton of conditions, which we all do. And when I'm looking at somebody, and we did that whole show, and we did a whole show on love with that Catholic priest. Remember that book, The Way to Love?
Way to Love.
Yeah.
Anthony DeMello.
Yeah, exactly. And that was an amazing book. But the cause and effect of me not judging someone and just loving them and wishing them the best what effect do you have on 50 people, 75 people, 100 people that you meet in your life?
And
you know what I mean?
You love the Jesus stuff. The golden rule.
Yeah, do unto others they do unto you. Yeah.
That is just an allegorical cause and effect of human beings, right?
Here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. Flapjack or whatever that thing is called, flyjack. Is that if I'm going to think about this, Jason.
Flyjack. Firestone Walker Brewing Company.
Oh my God.
Where are they from? This has got to be great. Dude, it's only 4% alcohol. It's not even, okay. Brewed by Firestone Walker Brewing Company. Paso Robles, California.
You're gluten intolerant.
I know, yeah. Probably.
Going night-night.
Dude, look at this. Look at this badass symbol. Is that like a English lion fighting a bear?
Yeah, fighting a bear.
So good.
Old school symbology.
I love it.
No, but Jason, that golden rule is cause and effect.
Yes.
If I really begin to love people properly, understand them, I'm only giving them those good energies, and also I'm creating causes within them through their interactions with me that it might bifurcate. Like that physics equation, right?
Yes.
Might separate into two different areas. And then the strength of that begins to grow. And then you really see the power in cause and effect. You see the power of your consciousness, because if you can recognize this in your consciousness, then you can understand the effectiveness of actually changing, or not changing, but helping someone change their own life, helping them find healing after you found healing within yourself.
Yeah. And whenever you look at, yourself being healed, then it creates this, and we talk about this unseen world that we've only imagined before.
Yeah.
But it becomes actual reality because we have a whole new operating system.
You have a whole new operating system.
And so things that you're like, just little things like, wow, that person cut me off in traffic, and I in my heart I really wish them the best.
Yeah.
And I said a little prayer for them, or I said an affirmation about them, instead of being like, fuck you, motherfucker. I'm going to come fucking pull my Glock out.
Like if I get cut off,
I got a high capacity magazine.
Yeah. And that's what people do.
Yeah. It's not California.
No, we just had a murder the other night, 2 blocks away.
I know. Yeah. I heard about that.
But
yeah.
Point is, Amanda's like, why don't you use the horn? I'm like, what is that going to do?
Yeah, I get
the horn brings I can use it to actually create awareness, or I can use it as a symbol of anger. So I was like, I'll only use it for awareness.
Yeah, I mean, if AIs were driving,
but that's changed over time.
That's
a development.
Oh yeah, you're from back east where it's crazy. Yeah. I've really become I used to get so angry, like ragey in driving, I'm so submissive now. It's like, okay, you take the lane.
Yeah,
because like this today, I had to go to the dentist, to get all this shit done, and I'm running late, and there's traffic on I-25 here. There was traffic, and I'm running 10 minutes late, and I'm like, well, I'll call them. The cause and effect. Here we go. This is perfect.
Oh,
perfect
example. Tell me how it applies to something else.
So, and this shows you how the universe works.
Yeah.
So cause and effect. So there's this guy in front of me, and he's weaving all behind me, so I get over in another lane. I wasn't in the fast lane. I was like in one of the lanes, and I was going probably 5 over the speed limit, like normal on the freeway here. But no, it's normal's 20 over here.
Normal's 20 over the speed limit.
So, I'm going, and then, so I get over to let him go, and he's,
Big diesel with the
and I'm like, I'm thinking, I think it was like a Ford truck or something. And I'm thinking, I started to go in that direction, we're like, you probably have a little dick, big truck, all that. But I didn't even get that far. I just said, maybe he's got to go to a job site. I'm running a few minutes behind because of the traffic. He could be having to go to a presentation for cabinets in a home that he's going to be pitching to D.R. Horton. Like my mind really went compassionate. Yeah. And I created all these imaginative ideas, and then I wished him the best of luck, and I wished him safe.
What you did is you neutralized the thought.
And then I went to the dentist, and I was 14 minutes late to the dentist's office, which I was thinking, oh shit, I'm done. And so I call the lady, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. There was an accident on I-25, and there was traffic. I had left on time. I knew I was good. I had left plenty of time to get there on time, and everything was honest. And then in that process of the whole traffic thing, I kept myself level-headed, and here's the effect. I walk into the door, and she goes, no, this is actually perfect, because she was running 10, 15 minutes late too.
That's great.
So she goes, you guys actually have perfect timing. And I'm like, thank you, universe.
Yeah.
All of that laid the groundwork of, I don't know the effects that are going to happen.
You don't.
All I can do is control that eternal aspects in me and then allow the universe to create the unseen world.
And when you say universe, you just fell into sheer dumb probabilistic luck that she was 15 minutes late.
Yeah, but I probabilistic luck. Yeah, I can blame it on that. But
no, that's not even blame. I'm saying because you equalized your thoughts. Okay,
yes.
You recognize the cause and effect. You just moved in that flow state and you just let it be what it is. Observed it, and then created an action of calling and being honest with what was going on. Well, lucky for you, all the causes and effects of her day led her to be 15 minutes late.
But even if they would have said, because I thought about this too, even if they said, because I'm trying to be like ultimately more self-aware, and things. So I thought about it. Even if they said, well, you're 15 minutes late, regardless, we have to reschedule the appointment. So I thought in my head, I can't get depressed, disappointed, or feel angry. I thought that. So I said, when I call, I need to be prepared for those things and not to allow those emotions to creep in, because this is totally out of my, having an accident on I-25 and me leaving plenty of time early and then me sitting in traffic that long.
Yeah.
From I-40 to I-25, I can't, that's out of my control. So for me to get an emotion and attach it to something that's out of my control. Now, if I would have caused the accident because I was going really fast and weaving in and out of traffic, and now I can't go to the dentist because I killed a family in a car.
You're responsible for that.
Now there's a whole different thing. The depression and all that, I'm allowed. But why would I create an emotion for something that is happening external?
Yeah, that you truly couldn't affect.
And the outcome, even though it may not be so-called favorable for me, because we're always judging outcomes in our limited
does it benefit me?
Consciousness.
Does it benefit me?
Yes.
Does it benefit
me? Do you
me?
see how that
goes? Does it benefit me? Yeah. That's all we do. Listen, that's an excellent example. And I would leave our listeners.
Yes, let's leave.
With this.
Get the fuck out of here.
Final thought for them to ruminate on.
The final countdown. Okay, let's get serious.
But here
Alex, I want to hear this.
Everything since the very beginning of your life, when you were crawling on the ground, the family you were born into,
right,
has led you here to this exact moment of listening to us. Absolutely everything.
And this is to Jim.
This is to Jim. Jim, thank you.
Yes.
But in all seriousness, since the spawn of your existence, everything that has consciously happened, that you have done consciously, has led you here to this moment in listening to us. Think about that. And then you begin to realize the power of cause and effect.
It's amazing. And I'll leave with this one. There was a statistic the other day, they were showing the probability of you being born. And so they would take like you, and then they took your parents' meeting, then they took your grandparents' meeting, and then your great-grandparents. It's like 500 billion to 1 of a chance for us to be born.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And we're here.
And
we take that probability for granted.
And we just pass it off, Consider those things.
Yes.
And the cause and effect of what I'm about to do will end this episode.
Because all is one.
All is one.
Look within, and live your life on the edge of 2 worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. The learning is done. Become the teacher in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Become a higher density being. Please go to www.higherdensityliving.com.